I come from a bodybuilding background, which means everything I see has always been viewed through a muscle building lens. This has caused me to write off many training methods as pointless. How, for example, could throwing a medicine ball at a wall help get me jacked? In the past, I would have laughed this off as unimportant for me, but I realize now how short-sighted this is. In a game of chess, it's the person who can think many moves ahead that's going to win, and I think the same can be true for building muscle. Today, I'd like to take a closer look at this seemingly pointless exercise, the medicine ball throw, and discuss how it may actually lead to even greater muscular development down the road. To begin, though I'm sure you're tired of hearing this by now, I should mention once again the importance of progressive overload for muscle gain. In simple terms, if you want to get bigger, you need to get better. That's just how it works. Whether it's more reps, more sets, more weight, less time, or whatever else you can think of, if you want to build muscle, you need to overload the body with progressively more work over a long period of time. With this in mind, an intelligent lifter might decide to focus most of their attention on developing strength on a wide variety of muscle building movements. This makes logical sense and should be a major part of anyone's program if they're serious about this stuff, but this can also be a bit narrow-minded. Like the chess player who only thinks one move ahead, thinking strength is the final solution to any problem will eventually leave you plateaued and wondering what went wrong. While there are many different traits you can develop in the pursuit of muscle, today let's focus on power, specifically ballistic power. To understand the big picture, sometimes the easiest solution is to take a step back and look at things in simple terms. For us muscle enthusiasts, the big picture boils down to better performance equals more muscle. Notice I said performance here and not strength. Strength is a major part of performance, but there's much more involved. While strength is the ability to overcome resistance, power is the ability to overcome resistance quickly. And at first glance, I know this probably means nothing to you. Much like how I would feel when watching a video of someone throwing a medicine ball, power probably seems unimportant for your muscle building goals. But if we go back to the big picture, we can look at that word performance once again and see that becoming more powerful is just as much a part of performing better as strength is. And if better performance is what leads to more muscle, which is what I'm saying here, then it doesn't really matter which trait you choose to develop because any increase in performance is going to get you there. With this in mind, maybe power development is beginning to make just a bit more sense for your goals, but you still probably can't see the benefit of throwing a medicine ball at a wall, and I get that. It took me a long time to even consider this stuff, let alone understand how it fits into the grand scheme of things, but let's take a closer look at how performance actually works. While reality is never as cut and dry as this, let's consider there are 3 levels of performance. At the top we have max strength, below that we have power, and at the bottom we have ballistic power. To understand this, let's consider the bench press for a moment. Max strength is easy here. What's the most amount of weight you can press regardless of bar speed? That's max strength. Power is a bit more complicated, but still pretty easy to understand. If your max slow-moving bench press was 100 pounds, you will most likely achieve max power or bar speed somewhere around 60 pounds. To work on maximum strength, you try to press as much total weight as you can, and to work power, you try to find a weight that's light enough to allow for max speed, but heavy enough that the bar doesn't fly out of your hands. Most people will stop here and call it good, but for the final level of performance, that ballistic power, I want to focus on that last bit. When trying to become a more powerful bencher, you still need a weight that's heavy enough that it doesn't fly out of your hands. Here's the main difference between power and ballistic power. No matter how hard you try, there will always be a deceleration component to a bench press. Because your body naturally knows it needs to keep hold of that bar so it doesn't come flying down onto you, it will start to slow the bar down as you reach lockout. This means that while power is being developed, it's incomplete. So how do we overcome this? Well, there are 2 main methods that I know of. The first one is pretty common knowledge at this point, largely thanks to Louis Simmons. To add that ballistic element to a bench press, all you need to do is add accommodating resistance, as in bands or chains. Because the weight gets heavier as you approach lockout, you will get rid of most of that deceleration effect. Actually locking out the bar will take priority to making sure it doesn't fly out of your hands, or maybe they're just a bit more even. So with added resistance that gets heavier at the top, you can maintain max force output during the entire rep. But this still isn't perfect, and it can have a major learning curve when you're first starting out. Using bands and chains for max strength is easy. Just pick a band tension for the day and load up as many plates as you can. But using them for optimal power development is a science, and it can all depend on your own personal strengths. What band tension is perfect for you to ensure max power during the entire lift? It's hard to say. Here's where we go back to the main inspiration for this video: throwing a medicine ball at a wall. While accommodating resistance is a good way to add a ballistic power element to your bench press, the med ball throw is far simpler. Rather than loading a bar with bands or chains to get rid of as much of that slowing down effect as you can, you could skip this part entirely and allow the bar to actually leave your hands. Of course, this wouldn't be safe with a barbell, so we can use a medicine ball. Pressing a med ball like you would press a barbell is similar enough to allow for carryover back and forth, and lets you develop the ballistic power part of performance. Okay, so maybe I am beginning to convince you on the importance of a med ball throw for improving performance, but how will that actually lead to more muscle? Well, if we go back to the idea that progressive overload or performance means more muscle, and we keep that zoomed out bird's eye view of things, then it doesn't really matter how you get better. All that matters is that you do. It's as simple as that. If you get better, then you're going to get bigger. So improving in any of the 3 areas I mentioned will help. But I also know that, if we're being realistic, a medicine ball throw probably isn't going to build you a massive chest on its own. Here's where the synergistic nature of things comes into play. Let's go back to that bench press example and say, just for the sake of clarity, that increasing the amount of weight you can press for 10 reps is the best way to build a big chest. Maybe we're getting back into some familiar territory here. If we make like a chess player and think 4 steps ahead, why this works becomes obvious. Developing ballistic power with the med ball feeds into and builds upon developing max power in a general sense, which again feeds into and builds upon developing your max strength, which finally leads to using more weight for your sets of 10. Improving upon any one of these abilities will lead to better performance in that typical 3 sets of 8 to 12 hypertrophy rep range, but it's when you start developing them all that things really take off. So I think we're at a good stopping point for today. I hope you found this video useful. There's a lot more to building muscle than just 3 sets of 10, and I personally find it very enjoyable to train different aspects of fitness. I know I talked a lot about using a med ball today, but remember, this was just an example. Anything that allows for this ballistic power development will work, whether it's throwing something or doing plyometric push-ups, whatever. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.